Hello everybody, welcome to episode 182 of Show Fever. Today we'll be going over episode 1167 of the One Piece anime. So, just to kind of start off, this episode was very brief, so I don't really have much to go over. But we see as, Roto, Nami, Zoro, and Luffy end up going to Aru's castle, where we see as Roto kind of gives them a rundown of the history. We learn about how Loki was responsible for killing Harold and all that. How Harold was a very close to being ancient giant with the amount of ancient giant blood he had in him. So he was massive. We see that was in fact the site where Loki killed Harold, and we just kind of learn a little bit more about Harold, about how he was such a peaceful king and all of that, and how he ended up removing his own horns from his head because he wanted to break his ties with the barbaric ancient giant past of his to make people fear the giants less. And we also learned stuff about Harden's past. We learned that Harden was in fact kind of a half or a mixed breed because Harold. We actually learned that here first that Harold was actually his father, therefore making him the half brother of Loki. And we learned though that he wasn't the heir to the throne because obviously he was the younger one, but also because his mother was a woman of a different giant people. So she was kind of a foreigner, and therefore people were like, no, we don't want her. So Harden kind of grew up as a outcast and all that, and we also got to see how Roto ended up joining Harden's crew because we see that Roto was very bullied as a child, and Harden actually walked up to him at one point, saw him drawing a nautical chart, and Harden was like, yo, this is sick, can you teach me about this? And so they became friends off that. But yeah, so we just kind of learned all this stuff. We also learned that Harden's dream is to become a king who unites all the giants. So a very noble goal. Yeah, so we see all this. We see as they walk through, and they, in fact, at the beginning, before they started actually going into Aru's castle, learned that, in fact, the castle had been broken out of rather than broken into. So they kind of go about looking for who broke out of it and where the key is to unlock Loki, which is their main goal. We see as they kind of go about and all of that, they end up finding a massive, almost ancient giant-looking skull, because Luffy even compares it to Oars, who obviously was in Thriller Bark. But yeah, then we actually get kind of the more of the meat and potatoes portion of this episode, where we get to see Loki dealing with the Holy Knights some more. And we see that, in fact, the Holy Knights had essentially killed all of the big animals that had been helping Loki and were Loki's allies. We see here as Gunko is going to town on Loki. She's using her Devil Fruit ability to just piece him up, absolutely throw the dukes at him. And this is going obviously pretty bad for Loki. He's taking a lot of damage from this, but he is not going to break. He is not going to become a Holy Knight at all. We see that he is stringently against this. We see as it keeps happening, and ultimately it goes on for like 6 minutes until Shamrock, who is, as we learn, the commander of the Holy Knights and the son of Figurlin Garling, who is the head of the science division of the world government now, after the untimely death of Saturn. But yeah, so we see, in fact, that, like I said, Shamrock is Garling's son, and he's also related to another individual, as we'll learn later on. That's just a little sneak peek at what is to come, because obviously I know from the manga. But yeah, so like I said, we see Shamrock, we see he's introduced, and like I said, learn that he's the commander of the Holy Knights now, which used to be the position that Garling held. But yeah, so we see ultimately as he tells Gunko to stop, he's like, you're not getting anywhere with this. So they end up laying off on Loki, but Loki is obviously still there, and they still want Loki. So ultimately Shamrock's like, you know what, let's just call in the rest of the Holy Knights. I'm tired of this. I'm tired it couldn't be done more cleanly. So we see as he prepares to bring in the rest of the Holy Knights and get this job done in a different manner rather than just beating the crap out of Loki. But yeah, that is really where the episode ends. Like I said, there was not much at all. And now, this episode did have great animation, with the long scene where he had Gunko just beating up on Loki. The animation was crisp. It was smooth. It was phenomenal. Toei cooked on it. But I kind of want to discuss a worry of mine. I'm really worried about how the pacing is going right now, because I thought with One Piece going to seasonal, the pacing would improve. But that doesn't appear to be the case, because we're still having some pretty slow pacing right now. I know it is kind of a transitional point for the story still, and we are getting close to a very, very interesting point of the story, but it is so kind of slow right now. But it will pick up. I know it will pick up. I'm just kind of worried about how Toei is planning to pace this at the moment, because they are still doing it pretty slowly, even with this new seasonal pacing, or seasonal, I guess, deployment of episodes. But yeah, that's all there really was for episode 1167 of One Piece. That's all I really have for episode 182 of Show For You. So thank you very much for watching.